Morning, guys and gals. Froggy here. I told you that I would redo this video on rear brakes on a '02 Suburban 1500, and now I'm going to do that. I've got two high lift jacks to get the rear axle off the ground, and I get access to the brakes, and I've also got some blocks in front of the front wheels so it doesn't go into my neighbor's yard. Okay, let's jack it up. I have an air gun to get the lugs off. You could also do it with a breaker bar. It's just a little more work. And there's 7/8 on my car. And there'll be some little beauty caps on there, little plastic beauty caps. Look like that. I've been meaning to refinish them, but I haven't got around to it yet. So they're just plastic caps. You take them off and then you get to the real lug. So now, first thing we're going to do is take the caliper off. So there's two bolts, top and bottom. I'll tell you the size in a second. To get the caliper off, this is a little bit tricky. There's a bolt and it goes into a threaded nut. It's kind of like a nut, and it's also a guide pin. So you need to hold this with a 16 millimeter and turn this with a 12 millimeter. It's got a couple of flats on there, so it's a little bit hard to find where those flats are. It's not flatted all the way around. It's just got two flats on it, so you can get a 16 on there. While I'm here, I want to show you how I jack this up. I like jacking it up near the center differential. It's very strong right there. Where are my fingers pointing? Whoops. Very strong right there. And also getting the jack in close to the center gives you a lot of room to work around the corner that you're working on. Okay? Let's get this caliper. Also inspect your brake line. Really, I should probably be replacing these, but they're not leaking and they look pretty good, so I'm not going to replace them. But I suggest maybe you should. You're going to have to bleed the system anyway. This caliper is in much better shape than the other side. You'll have to look at my other video if you want to see a picture of the other side. But I'm going to replace this caliper anyway because the truck has about 150,000 on it, and I don't want to have to be redoing this again because one of those pistons fails on this side. The pads also are much better on this side, but I'm going to replace the pads anyway. I've got some pads that ceramic composition in the pads, and they're supposed to be a pretty good pad. Now, I'll show you the thickness in a second. You know, there's hardly any difference at all. These pads on the left rear are barely worn at all. The rotor is worn a bit, but I think it's still within specifications, so I'm not going to change this rotor. I am changing the rotor on the other side because, remember I told you it got damaged because the piston was dragging in the caliper. Let me get around here, I'll show you the rotor. Trying to show you head on. So that rotor's still decent, so we'll leave that one alone. There's no scoring or anything. There's not much of a lip on it. The lip would be right there. Yeah, there's not much of a lip on either side. So rotor good. Let's just change out the caliper, put the new pads in, and we'll be done on this side. I've got to go back and do the other side because I do have to change that rotor. Here's one of Froggy's tips that you won't get elsewhere. To change out the brake line, you have to break this loose. It'll be tight. So I put the old caliper back on loosely so that it's the whole left rear corner is holding it in place for me. It's loose, but it's holding it in place enough so that I can crack loose this nut. Now, it just so happens that the old nut for the brake line is actually a little bit smaller than the new nut, which is there. The old one was 11 millimeters, and this one's 12 millimeters. So just a little minor difference there. Doesn't really matter. So now I'm going to take that off. It's going to keep dripping, but I'm going to take that off. I'm going to try and put this new nut on there, but I have to get the old one off of the brake line. So that was a little bit of a problem on the other side. I think I'll get some vice grips to hold that. And then I'm just going to have to maybe get 2 sets of vice grips and pull on it. What happens is the copper washers get crushed, and they get tight, and they hold this into I call it a banjo. They hold it into this area here on the hose. Okay, so let me get some vice grips. Well, I got it off. I ended up holding this end of the hose, holding it up here, and then banging on. I was holding it up there using the vice grips, and then banging on the end of the screw until I got this copper washer to finally deform and fail. So anyway, I got it off, so now I can put the new one on there. You got to make sure that those surfaces are not damaged. Right there, that sealing surface, and that one right there, and they look okay because I didn't get anywhere near either one of those. And you'll know if you've got a leak there when you step on the pedal, and you'll see some fluid dribbling out of there. So good. Now I'm going to put new pins here. These are the sliding pins, and then put the new caliper on. Attach this with the new, where is it? With this new special, it's a special bolt. It has a hole in it so that it flows through. So I'll show you. So you know that the fluid can flow through. See those holes? All right, so let's get that done. These new sliders might be in the new bracket, or you might get them with your caliper, or I'm not sure. But if you get new ones, I would suggest putting new ones in there along with the new seal on this. That's what the new pads should look like when they're loaded in to the bracket. New sliders, stainless steel. Okay, make sure that the little ears are sitting in the stainless steel sliding area. Some people put a little lube in there. I'm not going to this time on this car. It would be a high temperature disc brake lube, so that these can slide a little easier. But it's supposed to be okay to just put them in this way. It doesn't specify to use lube. I had a little trouble with this anti-rattle clip. So pay attention here. It has a taper to it. You see this taper? And then the caliper itself has a taper. So make sure taper matches taper, okay? The taper side doesn't go over there. And also make sure this flat part here is towards the pads, okay? I'll show you a picture of the other side. That's what the other side looks like. I had trouble with this clip because it was not quite bent the right way, so it wouldn't clip over the little ridge in the caliper. So I bent it a little bit more, and now it seems to be clipped on there pretty good. And the other side seems to also be clipped onto a little ridge there pretty good. So make sure you get that one in there right. It's just a little tricky, a little froggy tip. Okay, let's get this up on there. There's probably a torque spec for these, but I don't have it. It's going to be in 25-35 foot-pound range probably. But it's just a guess. Please look it up. And remember, there's flats on here, so you have to hold the flats when you tighten this up. And it's not that big of a nut, so that's why you don't really put like 100 foot-pounds on there or anything like that. Certainly less than 50, I'm sure. Okay, let's get this hydraulic hooked up, and then we have to bleed. I am going to tell you, according to one other auto repair center on the internet, this is 30 pounds, 30 pounds, 30 pounds, 30 foot-pounds on those. Okay, now we got to bleed. Okay, so that's it. I'm actually going to save brake bleeding for a separate video because I think it deserves a separate video. And also, I kind of just ran out of time. So look on my channel for brake bleeding or any other good YouTube do-it-yourselfer for brake bleeding. And that's it. I hope this helped you out. Give me a thumbs up or a like if it did. Subscribe to my channel if you want more from Froggy. Ring the bell if you want notifications. Be safe. Have fun. Froggy out. Let's go, Brandon.